It will change the way the world views terrorism forever. The death toll is unprecedented and the international political impact immeasurable. There is no doubt this was an attack on the very fabric of the world's most powerful nation, but it was carried out, it seems, with frightening ease. The terrorists, it appears, simply boarded 4 internal American flights and sometime after takeoff overpowered the air crews and turned the passenger jets into flying bombs, aimed at 2 instantly recognizable icons of America's world role. It was just before 9 in the morning New York time when one of the hijacked planes crashed into the first of the 2 towers of the World Trade Center. Just 18 minutes later, as the emergency services responded to the first attack, a second jet flew straight into the other tower. Within an hour, the Pentagon, the United States military headquarters near Washington, became target number 3, a third hijacked airliner, leaving it in flames. Back in New York, minutes later, the first of the Twin Trade Towers collapsed. Shortly after that, the second tower began to crumble to the ground. The world could do nothing but watch and ask why, and perhaps more importantly, how.
It's my view and it's my opinion that I think we must have had people on the ground in those airports maybe for some time before this incident, because this sort of thing can only happen if it's well planned, getting weapons on board aircraft, taking aircraft over and so on. One's very surprised that nothing was done to protect it, but what could you do? You couldn't shoot down a civilian airliner. We don't know exactly how close flight paths are. Even a hard target like the Pentagon is actually a soft target from the air, and that's one of the difficulties we have.
Much has been made of the terrorists' ability to find 4 highly trained jet pilots willing to kill themselves and their passengers. But experts now say they would have needed nothing more than basic flying skills to achieve their objectives.
Do it on a simulator. You can certainly have done enough as a lay person, once the aeroplane was in the air, to manage the systems on that aeroplane and do it with the autopilot in and made it hit those buildings.
Security experts say America's focus on international terrorism left it wide open at home.
The United States authorities have always been worried about their aircraft being hijacked overseas, US citizens being taken hostage. But security for domestic flights inside the United States, it's basically like taking a bus. You can walk in off the street and onto an aircraft. The chances of you having to have your baggage x-rayed, walking through a metal detector, having security guards pat you down, most airports you just do not get that. You get friends and relatives coming up to the gate. It is the equivalent of, let's say, taking a train in Britain or a coach between cities.
Once the initial shock and grief at what has befallen them subsides, there is no doubt that Americans will take a long, hard look at who and what gets onto their aircraft in future. David Bowden, Sky News.
When the bodies entombed in this are finally all counted, there is no doubt this will prove to be the worst day of terrorism the world has ever known. The authorities are dreading who may be buried under the thousands of tons of rubble that were once the World Trade Center. Some 50,000 people were employed here, and although many escaped, many others did not.
It just blew up, a big explosion, people started running, it was just chaos everywhere. People jumping out, people just kept jumping and jumping and jumping, and you could still see they were alive because they were flailing around.
We heard a big bang, and then we saw smoke coming out, and everybody started running out, and we saw the plane on the other side of the building, and there was smoke everywhere, and people are jumping out the windows. Over there, they're jumping out the windows, I guess because they're trying to save themselves, I don't know.
I was just standing here watching the World Trade Center after the first plane hit. I just saw a second plane come in from the south and hit the south tower halfway between the bottom and the top of the tower. It's got to be a terrorist attack. I can't tell you anything more than that. I saw the plane hit the building. I can't say anything.
Still around, guys. Still around.
God bless you.
We'll make it.
The world's last remaining superpower is also the world's #1 target for fanatical terrorists. While the United States and most of the international community are outraged by this carnage, those responsible will regard their various missions as a spectacular success. Their victory has claimed a horrendous number of lives. Hospitals in New York say they're running out of blood as they try to cope with the kind of casualty numbers you would associate with a war. If the United States finds out who did this, that's exactly what they could have. Chris Roberts, Sky News.
Just take a look at the pictures from earlier today. That was the World Trade Center shortly after 9 this morning when a plane hit the North Tower there. Second tower was hit shortly afterwards. Plane that appeared in the skies above people as they were just taking in the extraordinary scenes of damage done to the first tower. And there you can see the plane on the left of the picture slamming into the side of the second tower, several dozen floors from the top. And that incredible fireball